I always, you know, when you're out here roping, you always look at it. I mean, this is halfway today. You've had 5 behind, you got 5 in front. So you always, it seems like if you've done well, you know, it's like a big weight is off of your shoulders. But if you haven't, this is about the time that that you'll start getting the phone calls from people. You know, what's wrong with you? I got a horse you need to ride. And then all the information that you'll start getting, and all of the these wonderful words of wisdom from people that have they've watched a lot of roping, but everybody's got a tip for you. And if you give it a couple of more rounds and you don't win very much money from here on out, the crazy thing is you'll start listening to them. So anyway, the theme that we've been trying to keep the whole week is this right here. Whatever you do regularly will determine what you will have eventually. And then I've tried to pick 10 topics that go underneath that heading. And by any means, like I've said every time I've got up here, is this. If I could have done this when I was 25, I would have probably done a whole lot better job, or I would have at least thought I would have, because I had a lot of things figured out whenever I was 25. And at 42, I'm pretty sure I'd have nothing figured out anymore. Example, marriage. At 25, I wasn't married. At 42, I've been married for 10 years. Any of y'all that's been married for any length of time, you realize that the longer you're married, the less you know about marriage, and definitely the less you know about your spouse. Well, you'll learn more about them, but you know what I'm saying. You young guys, y'all are like, what's he talking about? Well, here you go. The topic today is what is your first response? And, you know, they say you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? Well, whenever you really think about that, really the most important thing that you'll do whenever is what is my first response? You know, you've heard the term of getting off on the wrong foot. Well, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Why is that? Why do you? So what I'm saying is it's very important that you're prepared, your first response be your first impression, your very first. It says we're supposed to be able to handle, before we can handle the large things, we've got to be able to handle the big things, okay? So in our life, whether it be just everyday life, big events, roping, for example, that's something that I know personally, for me, I have a lot of experience with, and that's probably my area of expertise, and I relate everything through roping. So, but really before I'm ready to handle roping at the national finals, I need to have roped a few outside of the Thomas and Mack. I need to have been to where I can handle just roping one at my house with nobody around me, and maybe even try to tie one in 6. Maybe tie one in 6 at my house before I come to the Thomas and Mack and try to tie one in 6. So you've got to be able to handle the small things before the larger things in life will come to you. It says in the Bible, which all truth is truth, right? It doesn't matter whether it's biblical principles or not. Truth is truth. You can take biblical principles out of the Bible and they still work. It's best if you use them in the context that they're meant for, but you can walk around and tell yourself that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread in whatever you're doing, and you know what? You don't have to use it in the biblical sense. It'll work. That's the bad news of the deal, and that's the good news. The bad news of it is one of these days you will actually start to believe that, and you're on a road that's not necessarily the best road you can be on. But you know, we've heard the term fight or flight. Well, that's your first response. Your first response is it's the fight or flight. You know, you're either gonna, when something happens to you, you'll either be ready for a fight or you'll run. And I was thinking of one this morning. It's either fear or faith. What happens? What's your first response whenever you get the phone call and somebody goes, "Oh my gosh"? Is it fear or is it faith? Is it fear like, "Oh no, what are they fixing to say?" Or is it faith? "Hey, everything's going to be all right"? Is that your first response? Is if something happens to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to let y'all know that
if something happens to you, how do you handle situations in your first response? Because that will set you up. Once you start down,
jackets, maybe some vests.
You've heard the deal of
50% off, and that's
you're going down the wrong road.
2 hours.
Well, how can you go down the wrong? How can you expect yourself whenever you go down the wrong road? You have to turn back around. Say you're traveling and you do get off on the wrong foot, and you're
thank them for doing that when you're over there.
You're going down the wrong road. What happens? You don't just all of a sudden get back on the right track. You have to turn around and come back. So what are you doing? You're wasting your time. So why get off on the wrong foot? Why make that? Why have that happen? Your first impression be that way. And it's very important. Whenever I was speaking one time, and Jennifer's kind of my bouncing board as far as whenever I'm talking of how things are going. If I watch her from time to time. You got to be careful about watching her, because every once in a while she'll, like instance this one time, I'm talking about all the injuries I've been through and all the surgeries and what off, and I'm just rattling them off, and I'm telling you know, I've done the Celebrex deal, I've had to be on painkillers, and I've done this, and I've done Celebrex and the Vioxx, and whenever I said Vioxx, she thought I said something else, and I was like, her first response was she didn't hear Vioxx, she heard another word, and I was like, so much so that it made me question what I had said. And instead of just rolling right through it, I was like, no, honey, now I'm talking to her. I'm like, no, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. You know, I didn't say Viagra. And she said, because of the look. Well, that was her first response to what I was saying. So it says in Matthew 6:33, truth is truth, right? So let's not just use biblical truth for self-gain, all right? We'll use real truth, not what I said. What's the book say? 6:33, Matthew 6:33 says, seek ye first the kingdom. That means look to God first. So when somebody say I'm headed from here to the next place that I'm supposed to be, and I'm in my car, and somebody cuts me off in traffic, what's my first response? Say somebody really cuts me off, and say they even wave at me, but only with one finger. What's my first response? Is it to give it back to them, wave back to them, and with a couple of words of my own? Or is it to just, what? What? Yeah, God bless you. Yeah, is that it? What's my first response? Well, what's my first response for this right here? Now it's easier for me when somebody, I don't know if it's easier, but yeah, it is easier because it doesn't cost me any money.